The universe is mostly immaterial, and the small amount of matter that actually exists is nothing more than frequencies. I'll say it again to make sure it sinks in. The universe is fundamentally made of vibrational energy, and our perception of solid matter is an illusion created by how these frequencies interact. This is not pseudoscience. This is fact. The metaphysical/spiritual community caught wind of this and used it toward their own philosophies, pushing their claims on the public in an eloquent and uplifting way. Somehow, quantum mechanics became a staple on the self-help shelf. This may have misconstrued vibrational energies as quackery, labeling them as pseudoscience when they are actually very real. And yes, they make up everything we see and touch.
Nikola Tesla once said, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration."
All my previous videos about the universe has led me to create this one, the concluding video that describes my personal theory of the universe, which is based on scientific facts from my previous videos. According to the law of conservatism, nothing gets erased or deleted, not even if it's sucked into a black hole. Frequencies, aka all matter and energies, are somehow able to retain a memory of the past. If this is true, which has been proven time and time again, all the energy in the universe retains the memory from when all forces coalesced as one.
A perfect symmetry inside the singularity, just before it expanded.
This created the first law of the singularity, that all forces must have been equal and indistinguishable until something disrupted that balance. This first law coexisted with another just as equally valid law, and that is the first law of thermodynamics. All energy, even inside the singularity, is conserved. It cannot be created or destroyed or lose its memory.
Please remember this. It is very important to my theory of how the singularity amassed all its energy, and I'll get to that shortly.
The singularity was infinitely dense. No space or time existed outside of it, which leads me to believe that gravity existed before the Big Bang, because the singularity had the capacity to exist while being infinitely dense, and this density is what curves space-time. It's all very complicated and hard to explain, but
if gravity didn't exist before the Big Bang, then there wouldn't have been a singularity. Just an eternal universe governed by quantum fluctuations, and within one of these quantum fluctuations created the Big Bang.
This is something I don't agree with. If this were true, that would imply that our four-dimensional space-time always existed, but it couldn't have always existed because we can plainly see the universe's expansion, and not only that, we can even theorize how it will end, which I'll get into later in this video.
Most current models of the universe believe that nothing existed outside the singularity. There was no vacuum of space, and time didn't exist. Quantum fluctuations can't fluctuate if there is no space for these fluctuations to take place.
With that said, scientists still believe that quantum fluctuations is what caused the Big Bang, simply because there are no other logical explanations for it.
This was obviously a very large hiccup of a fluctuation to cause such a rapturous uproar that is known as the Big Bang. No scientist in history has ever witnessed this much energy springing from the emptiness of space. If they did, they would witness many Big Bangs happening all of the time, but they don't. So why are they so keen on believing that a quantum fluctuation is what caused all of this?
Because they have no other explanation. Right away, you can see the major flaw in our understanding. Many people believe nothing existed outside the singularity, but at the same time, they also believe that a very large quantum fluctuation still took place. This model clearly doesn't make sense. I believe gravity is the missing piece of the puzzle, but to this day, nobody knows what gravity is. I have a very loose idea of what gravity might be based on information that we already know, and that is that it most likely existed before the Big Bang, and it is responsible for curving space-time. Think of the universe as a flat piece of paper. If you put a marble in the center, the paper will bend around the marble. For larger marbles, they will sink deeper into the paper. This is essentially how gravity works, and we don't know anything else about it. We know that space-time can ripple like fabric from gravitational waves. If we were to experience a massive gravitational wave, our physical bodies would be stretched and squeezed at regular intervals until the waves subside. And since our inner ear relies on the structure of space-time for balance, it'll distort our sense of equilibrium.
Our perception of time would be out of sync.
This makes gravity the key factor to understanding our universe. Since gravity is the only force responsible for warping the fabric of space-time, it leads me to believe that
gravity doesn't originate from within our space-time. It was born outside of it.
Think about it. If you really think about it, it makes perfect sense. Almost to the point where it cannot be argued. One basic principle to our understanding is that a system cannot fundamentally alter itself from within. It requires an external force, or in this case, an extra-dimensional influence. Imagine a video game world. Its characters, landscapes, and physics exist within the rules programmed into the system. The game world cannot change its own fundamental code. Any modification must come from outside, like a developer or a programmer or an external system override.
If our universe is a kind of self-contained system, then gravity, bending space-time itself, suggests an external influence, something outside the system manipulating the structure itself.
Electromagnetism, along with the strong and weak nuclear forces, operate within space-time, but gravity uniquely deforms space-time itself. If gravity were just another force within our universe, it should behave like electromagnetism with a clear force carrier like photons have for light.
Instead, gravity bends the structure of space-time itself, suggesting that its cause may lie beyond our known dimensions.
Gödel's incompleteness theorem states that any logical system contains statements that cannot be proven true using the rules within the system. This means that if our universe is a self-contained system, we might never be able to explain gravity using only the physics inside it. We would need an external framework, perhaps a higher dimensional one, to fully describe it. Now that you know gravity might have arisen from outside the fabric of space-time, that still doesn't explain how the singularity amassed all its energy. This is the part of the video where I roll up my sleeves and get down and dirty, or as Will Smith would put it, get jiggy with it.
This is where my personal theory comes into play, and it may sound complicated and hard to grasp, but stay with me while I explain for the first time the true theory of everything. We are batteries. We're batteries. That's what we are. We're batteries.
No, just joking. Okay, I'm sorta joking. Not really. Or am I? It's an oversimplification stating that we are batteries. Yes, I love the first Matrix movie, but the Matrix didn't influence my theory in any way. I only realized that my theory was similar to the Matrix after I came to this hypothesis, which is 100% all my own.
But it's built off the shoulders of geniuses. Before I tell you my ultimate theory to everything, I have to tell you about how the universe is expected to die. This part is real science. I didn't make any of it up. Maybe a little bit.
The universe is expanding at an accelerated rate. Once this expansion hits a tipping point, it will pull apart all matter into basic molecules. Then it will pull apart molecules into singular atoms. Then protons, then quarks. Basically, everything will be ripped apart. This is known as the heat death of the universe, or the Big Rip. No physical matter will remain, and without physical matter, space ceases to exist. Let me explain why. In order for energy to be released from atoms must come in contact with an outside force to create friction. This friction is what releases the energy inside atoms. But there will be no more friction during the heat death of the universe. There will be no more catastrophic events, big or microscopically small, that can release energy from atoms. As I stated over and over in my videos, space cannot exist without energy. Energy can't exist without time. Time can't exist without space. If one of those components disappears, the whole system collapses.
But what happens is, since energy can no longer be released, the fabric of space-time breaks down. It no longer has the organized energy that is needed to form our 4 dimensions. Without the release of energy, there can be no more structure. If you picture our universe as having a wooden frame that holds all the dimensions up and apart from each other, the wooden frame would be energy. Without that energy, the frame collapses. And thanks to the law of conservatism, all the energy that ever was is now once again squeezed into a single point, which is known as the singularity.
And thus, the system repeats with another Big Bang. They call this theory the bounce back, and it's one that I personally agree with. To me, it makes the most sense, and I thought about this a lot.
A lot.
With that in mind, how did the singularity amass so much energy? This is where perceptions come into play.
Please remember that when I say perceptions, I'm talking about decoherence.
When one object reacts to another object in such a way that it collapses the wave function of the object it's perceiving. This too is proven fact. Quantum wave functions are collapsing wherever matter exists. Here's something to think about. Does perception have something to do with gravity? When a quantum wave function collapses, does this assign mass to the object? This might be another topic for a different video, so let's put it aside. Anyway, to get back to what I was saying, the environment is in the perpetual act of decohering itself, and this is done with the help of perception and the fine structure constant, which I have talked about in past videos.
As I told you, information from the past is never lost. It's stored in the form of a frequency, a type of code or blueprint reminding us of how that particular frequency came to exist. Where exactly are these frequencies stored? We don't know. We can only guess. Some say quantum fields or encoded in a quantum wave function. Some say these memories are stored in a higher dimension or inside dark matter or dark energy. We just don't have the answer to that, but we absolutely know for certain, 100% proof, that information from the past can never be destroyed. But we just don't know where the heck it is.
The Akashic records suggest that all information is stored in a non-physical realm accessible through consciousness.
Could this correspond to quantum information fields?
This is where consciousness comes into play. I know it might seem like I'm saying a lot and not getting anywhere, but I promise I'll tie it all together at the end. My theory doesn't work unless you all know these little parts that bring it together.
I'm a person who believes that consciousness permeates all space like a fundamental ether that connects everything. I am not religious or spiritual, but a person who seeks truth through science, and despite that, I'm still very much convinced that consciousness is fundamental because material objects can't decohere themselves. They can't decohere their environment otherwise. They can't break down the quantum wave function without some form of perception.
If you don't know what I'm talking about, please Google the double slit experiment. It will explain everything I'm talking about. A wave of light cannot break itself down into a photon by itself. It needs an outside force to do that. If it's not by us, it's being broken down by other measuring devices. Anything other than itself is responsible for its collapse from a superposition particle wave into an actual photon.
Unfortunately for us, consciousness isn't a system that can be measured or observed, but it undeniably exists. But how do we measure the unmeasurable?
I think of consciousness as a modulation. Modulation refers to the process of altering or varying a signal, wave, or system in response to another influence. I know things are getting complicated here, but stay with me. I'll tell you what a modulation is in simpler terms, such as talking on the phone. Your voice is modulated into electrical signals so it can travel through wires or the air. When it reaches the other person's phone, a microchip demodulates the electrical signals and turns them back into sound waves.
That's the simplest way I can describe what modulation means. Now, when we apply that same analogy to consciousness, in this case,
consciousness would be the voice talking into the phone, and our brains would be both the receiver and the demodulator. In other words, we're the interpreter of this conscious energy.
We're the microchip that turns those signals into self-awareness and perspectives. We decohere this conscious energy and claim it as being our own.
We can also think of consciousness as a radio signal, and our physical brains are the antenna to this signal. We decode this signal and personalize it into our unique perspectives. Just because our radio breaks down over time, that signal is still there, including our interpretations of it.
This conscious energy field isn't what you think it is.
All it is a field that puts labels on things. It's the field that distinguishes one thing from another and assigns unique attributes to all forms of matter. It's like a robotic sorter of information, separating the four fundamental forces of the universe during the singularity's expansion. It separates the protons from the neutrons. It tells how strong the nuclear forces should be. It assigns the numerical value to the fine structure constant, and it even tells sunflowers to always face the sun. It does stuff like that. You know what I'm talking about? Anything that we can't explain with science. That's what this does.
But this robotic sorter wasn't put there by chance. It was cultivated over many big bangs, and I'll circle back to that shortly, and I'll talk about it later.
In other words, the robotic sorter is our hidden manager. It's the voice on the phone that we have no choice but to listen to and obey. And this hidden manager is not just being decoded by us humans, but every object with mass and or energy. The more complicated the system, the more it's able to decipher this conscious energy, and the more it deciphers, the more choices that are shown. With more choices, free will and self-awareness begin to emerge. In my theory, choice equals God. The ability to make conscious choices, to me, is the highest form of self-awareness. To know thyself is to know the divine.
But honestly, I don't like to think of this conscious energy field as actual energy. It acts more like gravity than it does energy.
Gravity isn't energy. It's more like an underlying force. But it's not a force either. It's more like a law. Wherever there is energy, whether it be large amounts or small amounts, there will always be a curvature of space-time to accommodate that energy. Space-time gets pushed aside in a way that makes room for this energy. So, this robotic sorter isn't energy. It's not a field or a force, but possibly a connection to a higher realm altogether, much like gravity. If dense objects with low vibrational frequencies are the key to entering a lower realm, that would indicate that the robotic sorter is just the opposite, a higher frequency into a higher dimension that we can access via our consciousness. Consciousness as a modulation explains so much that cannot be explained through science alone. It explains altered states of consciousness, near-death experiences, or out-of-body experiences. It explains why we all receive the same answers while in deep meditation, because consciousness, it doesn't exist inside the body. The body interprets consciousness, and for some reason our interpretations hold together when we travel outside our bodies.
In essence, we are interpreting this conscious realm, and it's through the very act of interpreting do we become who we are.
A packet of information, a packet of perspectives. This packet is what makes up our soul. And since information never dies, we hold inside of us the memory of the universe while it was still inside the singularity, everything coexisting as one.
We are quite literally everything and everywhere all at once.
The Akashic records suggest that all information is stored in a non-physical realm accessible through consciousness. Thanks to the law of conservatism, this non-physical realm is not affected by entropy or the heat death of the universe. All information is sacred and protected above all costs. But once heat death occurs and everything is once again squished into the singularity, all the information stored inside the non-physical plane is also sent back inside the singularity.
Everything reverts back.
This is why everyone receives the same answers while in deep meditation. This is known as perennial philosophy.
Perennial philosophy is the idea that all religions, spiritual traditions, and philosophies share a universal core of truth, a fundamental wisdom about reality, consciousness, and the nature of existence.
It suggests that throughout history, different cultures and belief systems have been expressing the same underlying truth in different ways. Here are 5 core examples of these universal beliefs. Number 1, there is a single ultimate reality. sometimes called God, the Absolute, the One, Brahman, the Tao, or universal consciousness. This reality exists beyond our ordinary senses, but can be experienced through spiritual insight or deep contemplation. Number 2, the physical world is an illusion, or a lower form of reality. Number 3, human consciousness is connected to this higher reality. Number 4, wisdom and enlightenment are about remembering, not learning. Number 5, morality is universal because it's tied to this deeper truth.
Compassion, love, and unity are valued across all traditions.
All of these truths can be felt not just for us humans here on Earth, but to aliens on other planets. We all come from the same source, the singularity, and it amasses its energy from us, from our perceptions.
Not just from our perceptions, but any time an atom releases its energy, that memory is stored in the non-physical realm as a blueprint, a little packet of information. The law of conservatism proves that everything gets stored away.
When everything is once again sucked into the singularity, it now has all the new blueprints that weren't there in the last Big Bang. Hence, it amassed more energy from pure information that is stored in the conscious realm.
Batteries. We're batteries. Batteries.
Not only did it amass more energy, but our hidden manager, which can also be thought of as an auto-correction code, merges with the database of blueprints and uses that to recreate all that's been lost during the heat death of the universe. So everything repeats. We only have the illusion of free will. Everything is actually deterministic. We exist because we have existed before. This, of course, is my own personal theory. I never heard of it before, and probably for good reason, because it sounds crazy. But does it really sound crazy? There's no way to prove it, so it can't fit in with being a scientific study, but it's more like a metaphysical one or a philosophy.
We only have the illusion of free will. Everything is actually deterministic. My theory suggests that we're chatting over the phone with a conscious realm, and it's through the very act of idle chit-chat that we're able to become self-aware. Like this conscious realm recognizes us, and so in turn, we're able to recognize ourselves. It's just like breaking down the quantum wave function. It's only with people instead of particles. The conscious realm perceives us, and so we become somebody. Instead of us being an infinite wave of probabilities, we settle on the most likely one that we unknowingly agreed to.
This conscious realm existed long before our Big Bang, almost like it's our ancestor or our heritage. This ancestral voice is what labels us. It's what separates us from other frequencies. Our self-awareness is then encapsulated, never deleted, but can live on by returning to the conscious realm. And then, once the universe comes to an end, we return to the singularity to do it all over again, building off from past blueprints so we can create more blueprints for the next Big Bang. What we know.
The singularity never disappeared. We're still inside of it. It has only expanded.
Frequencies are its only occupants. Measurements modulate immaterial frequencies into material objects. Those material objects are also frequencies, just that they vibrate at a much lower frequency than immaterial objects. Our physical brains modulate the reality we see.
If our brains were wired differently, we'd see an entirely different reality.
These are things we know as true. What I can surmise is that gravity comes from outside our realm, possibly the same realm as our hidden manager, and it's possible that we're living inside a projection from that higher dimension. Why? I don't know. Maybe our eternal selves are bored as hell, so they created a playground for themselves. Some of them thought it would be cool to experience suffering, and so that's all we ever do, is suffer.
Thanks, guys. That's real nice of you.
This reminds me of the show Severance, when the employees of a cult-like company are sent to work each day, but from their perspective, they never leave work. It's all they know. And their outside selves have no idea what their innies are doing at work. Their work self is severed from their outside self, and this creates another persona, a completely different person inhabiting one body.
What if that's what we did? What if we're the monopole that bumped the singularity into exploding? And now we're stuck inside a perpetual cycle just because we wanted a little entertainment.
There's a declassified document, thanks to the Freedom of Information Act, that proves all this stuff to be true, backed by science, tested and studied by the greatest minds of the time, and this document is called the Gateway Process.
The Gateway Process Report is a secret CIA document from 1983 that explores a technique for expanding human consciousness and achieving altered states of awareness. It's through hemisync technology, meditation, and out-of-body experiences that they were messing around with. The CIA has gone as far as saying it is not just a theory, but a proven fact. And why is nobody talking about this?
Their findings provided proof that reality is a hologram, that consciousness can escape space-time, and that human minds can access higher dimensions through specific training. Nobody is sponsoring this video, so I'll do it myself. I have written a science fiction book, Cedar-Wells-Level-One, that is based off of my theories, and it's free. You can find it on Royal Road, so you don't need to sign up to anything. Just read it at your leisure. And I'll put a link in the description. And although this video marks the pinnacle of my journey to discovering the truth, I'm sure more videos on this subject will follow.
But this is it. This is my ultimate theory. And I'd love for you guys to tell me what you think, or just pop in to say hello. And thank you, mucho gracias for watching.